Hello and welcome to Art from Heart Beyond the Canvas. I'm Avni Shiram, the founder of Art from Heart, and today we'll be diving into the world of art and architecture. We're thrilled to have Miss Kirsten Lien as our guest. Miss Lien has been involved in the industry since 2001 and brings interior architecture and design expertise to the Ware Malcomb team. As director, she leads the growth and management of the interior architecture and design studio for the Pleasanton office. Ms. Lien's in-depth experience includes design, visioning, programming, space planning, account management, as well as business development. She has managed a variety of projects, including full-service interior design and tenant improvements for office, mixed-use, public, and retail facilities. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Lien. We're excited to have you as our guest and share your journey with our audience.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So I would first like to ask you, what initially inspired you to pursue your field?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it really just kind of goes back to who I was when, I think as a high schooler, you start thinking about these things. And when I just look back at like my high school career, I really found myself more interested in things like graphics and drafting and art and woodworking. And I still went to high school in an era where all of those things were actually still available as part of like your high school curriculum. And not that, any of the other subjects were bad, I just wasn't as interested in them. And so I kind of leaned into that and, just thinking about what my future career should be. And that led me down to the path of, maybe I should look at interior design as an option.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a high school student too, so I totally understand. I also like some classes more than others, so
Yeah,
yeah, that's
every
that's
high
great.
schooler does.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. So, the next thing I'd like to ask you is where do you draw inspiration from to stay creative, and how does creativity connect with your work?
Yeah. I think as far as staying creative, it's actually really important to just get away from screens and it's important to just get out into your community and see what's happening. Like go to art installations, go and see, try different retail experiences. I also think leaning into the challenge, like every client that you interact with, they're bringing a different challenge to the table. And I find that really exciting to sort of figure out how are we going to deliver, right? Because they're delivering kind of this challenge to us in the form of words, whether it's what they want their employees to experience or how they want to express their business or how they want to express their identity. And so being able to take those words and then translate that into a physical space or physical identity, like I really enjoy that part of the challenge of the creative process. So I
Mm.
like to lean into that.
Awesome. Yeah. I can understand that too. I guess like as students, like when we study, I guess like if we're not able to understand something, it's like important to take a break or like just go out and do something else or approach it from a new angle. And I also feel like as far as like architecture, I think as someone who like doesn't know much about it, I would think that just creating like a design is what would be the creative aspect, but there's like so much more to that. It's like incorporating what your client wants and other limitations, and I guess that's also like part of the creative process for architecture.
It is. I mean, I would say every sort of project, or your client's going to kind of give you parameters of what they're looking for. And then in my world, we also have the parameters of the building code. And so,
Mm.
sort of looking at all of that mixed together, it's like, what can we really do to make this space come alive and still actually protect like life safety too? Can you egress that
Mm.
building if a fire happens or if, there's like a physical threat within your workplace?
Yeah, so I guess like the aesthetic of like a building would also have to be like functional, like it would have to last and like
Yep.
follow all the safety guidelines. Yeah,
Hmm.
so
Yeah. So
that's
there's all
pretty
sorts of
interesting.
things that are going into this like creative process.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Could you share like a memorable or challenging moment in your journey as an architect and what you learned from it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think you could pretty much ask any architect, any interior designer, what was the very first mistake you ever made? And almost every one of them could tell you exactly what it is. For me, I remember I misspecified some carpet. And at that point, I was pretty young. And so, I leaned into my boss a lot to help me get through that situation. But as I've grown over the years, things happen. We're working in the built environment. And so product gets ordered, product gets installed. And it's very easy to sort of look at it and sort of say, that's not what I wanted, or this detail didn't come correctly together. And so when you run into those types of situations, you really kind of just need to take a step back and say, you know what, let me just investigate it for you, because things happen for all sorts of reasons. And so you just kind of have to like take a step back and review the documentation. How did you get there? So like, for example, we just ran into an issue recently in a building in Texas. And, at first it looked like it was going to incur some cost, but actually there wasn't any errors involved. The jurisdiction had made some changes since we built it 2 years ago, and now this tenant was looking at expanding. And so, like, nobody was really at fault. The jurisdiction had just changed. And so I think learning to kind of just pause and do that investigation of like, how did we get to this point? And then I think the most important part is really being able to look forward and being able to have kind of a solution-based answer of like, here are our options. And so generally that's, it's never fun, right? These moments, but you kind of just gotta take a step back, pause, look at all the information, and then, make the best move forward that you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess mistakes are also like learning opportunities. So I guess that would impact how we'd approach something like that in the future. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. You always will learn from your mistakes, so they have value.
yeah, definitely. Awesome. This next question is pretty fun. If you could collaborate with anyone, who would it be, and what kind of project would you envision to do with them?
So it's sort of interesting. I wasn't totally sure where I wanted to go with this question. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, I never really thought about running a business with my sister, but my sister is a civil engineer. And actually, I
Mm.
think we would have had a lot of fun just running a business together, doing architecture and civil engineering together, which I might have to call her
Mm.
after this and be like, guess what my answer was to this question?
Oh,
But no,
that's
I think it
cool.
actually would have been just like fun to have her as my sister and as a business partner all at the same time.
Wow, yeah. I mean, tell me more about that. How would you like work with your sister? Like how would civil engineering and architecture, like how do those fields
Oh,
intersect? What would you say?
well, they intersect every day. I mean, the reality is like every building goes on land, and that land has to be developed for drainage. You have to bring in sewer, you have to bring in power, you have to bring in all sorts of
Mm.
utilities to that site, and civil engineers do that. And so architects are always collaborating with civil engineers on every single project that we do.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, of
Like
course.
there's
That
not a
that makes
project that
sense.
goes by that you wouldn't be working hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I bet, yeah, engineering and like the STEM aspect would also be super important in architecture for like stability reasons or
Yeah.
functional
I
reasons.
mean,
Yeah.
having important consultant relationships really, are important to the success of your project. So working with mechanical
Mm.
engineers, electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers, we're all working together to bring that holistic vision of the client to life.
Mm. Okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
hmm
Awesome.
So it's
Okay.
never just an architect working by ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess like would you say that teamwork is like super important and like what are the different like roles of people in a team for like in architecture in general? What would you say?
Mhm. Yeah, teamwork is really important. I also think sort of taking ownership of your piece of the team
Mm.
is really important as well. And so, I mean, as part of the team, you have people that are really bringing life to life the creative side. You have people that are really making sure that all the technical pieces of the creative side are coming together. You have people that are overseeing just the general project management of the project. Are all the parts and pieces working together? Are we staying on track with like the holistic schedule and the goal? Somebody keeping the project on budget. That's always a piece
Mm.
of it too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of pieces of collaboration. And then I think also just making sure that everything is coordinated. So we spend a lot of time actually coordinating with consultants as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's a very creative field and it's a very technical field, and we're kind of at a constant intersection between those two things.
Yeah, that's super cool. Awesome.
It is.
Okay, so I mean, I know like as a high schooler, we're all sort of navigating like what career to choose. So, what advice would you offer to young people pursuing creative or professional passions?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, there's people that are creative and but maybe you think you're not as creative as someone else. And I would just say you shouldn't let that hinder you because there's just so many ways to be creative and there's so many intersection points between being creative and also being technical. So I think you can be the technical person in a creative field and you can be the creative person in a creative field. And so I think
Mm.
there's really a lot more option and choice out there. And then, I have tons of friends too. They're actually not in creative fields, but almost everyone enjoys creative outlets in life. And so it's really interesting to kind of just collaborate with your friends and find out what their creative outlets are. And so
Mhm.
I don't know. I generally think that creativity is for everyone and that there's some aspect of it in all careers, no matter kind of what direction that
Mm.
you go. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason why like I do this podcast is just to talk to different people in different professions and to ask them how they use creativity. So, I mean, people say like marketing requires like a lot of creativity, like just really marketing like a business or like services, or just like the a thought process also requires a lot of creativity for different fields, like depending on
Yep,
what you do. So, yeah, I totally agree. Creativity is definitely in everything we do. So.
it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Miss Lien, for sharing your journey and your insights with us today. And it's really been a pleasure hearing about your experiences and the passion that you bring to your work in architecture. And I'm sure that our listeners have gained a lot of valuable inspiration from your story. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us on this episode of Art from Heart Beyond the Canvas. We really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and stay connected for more exciting episodes exploring the intersection of art and creativity in all its forms. Until next time, stay creative.
Thank you.